Hello, people of the internet. This is Kaijin Noir. Here with me is my co-pilot Pete,
Hey guys.
and we are here to give you our thoughts on Elysium, the latest film by Neil Blomkamp, the man who directed District 9. The movie takes place near the end of the 21st century, where the Earth has pretty much devolved into this wasteland, or practically a wasteland, where there's a lot of overpopulation and pollution and disease. So all of the rich and wealthy upper class citizens, they had this giant space station built that seems to orbit around the Earth called Elysium. While the upper class live on Elysium, where they live a life of luxury and have all this nice technology to keep them healthy, everyone else pretty much live like rats on a dying planet where they pretty much have where kind of like the cities, the buildings are all worn out, technology is barely working, everyone's dying left and right, trying to stay alive through very low paying jobs, and all the resources have been basically used up. We are then introduced to this character, Max, played by Matt Damon, who suffers a radiation related accident, and in order for him to stay alive, he has to escape to Elysium. But in order to do that, he takes a job from an old acquaintance where that involves him getting attached to this exoskeleton suit, which gives him enhanced strength, in order to steal vital information from one important person and use that information to allow everyone on Earth access to Elysium. However, the one major thing that's stopping him is a sleeper agent by the name of Kruger, who is working for the people of Elysium in order to stop him and retrieve the information before Max can use it. So when it comes to Elysium, the first thing I really want to talk about is the world that is established in this movie. What are your thoughts?
See, I think the beginning does a very good job of illustrating what kind of world this is on Elysium. You see hardships. You see what kind of world they're living. The very beginning of the movie, in fact, shows you a pretty good view of the majority of LA, because that's where the film takes place. You see the majority of LA almost completely destroyed. So you see how much they've been suffering, how much they've lost. It really gives you a good scope of what life is like on Earth, while panning over to Elysium, and you see the complete difference. It's a complete different world, essentially. Mm-hmm. You have, again, the life of luxury, and those almost left for dead, for a sense. In fact, I think the people of Earth are still working for the people of Elysium.
Right. I get a heavy sense that the people who live in LA are kind of like the people who live in Mexico. Not all of Mexico, mind you, but like the worst parts of Mexico. And Elysium is supposed to be the United States, because in the movie it is established that there are people who desperately try to go to Elysium, but unfortunately get either recaptured and deported or get killed along the way.
You could definitely make that comparison. It's there. Yeah, it's very notable.
Yeah, very noticeable. I mean, the fact that the majority of the people who live in LA are Latinos. Basically, it's like hey, we are making a comment on immigration here.
Absolutely.
Also, going back to Mexico, what LA looks like reminded me a lot of TJ. I mean, like the worst parts of TJ, which is unfortunately most of that city. Yeah. I mean, I've been there several times in my life, and yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind, that pretty much the entire Earth has turned into Tijuana, Mexico.
And coincidentally, everyone just happens to speak Spanish.
Yeah. But when it came to Elysium, it reminded me so much of the space colonies from the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise. I mean, I told you that during the when we were watching the movie, I even showed you like pictures of the space colonies. It looked like so much like that. I feel like the director, Neil Blomkamp, was a pretty huge Gundam fan, I believe.
You think so? I like the design of Elysium. I really do. This is the way the space. I consider it almost like what do you call it? A space station or?
Space. Oh, well, in Gundam they call it a space colony.
Yeah, I mean, it looks really beautiful. I mean, seeing the way how it goes into it and how just there's a lot of nice details on Elysium. You can tell that it's basically it is a paradise for the people of them. I really wish, however, we went more into like more people's daily lives because we really don't get to see a lot of Elysium besides a lot of government buildings.
Yeah. And what in the movie there are also these robot servants that act as the police force, as household servants, as doctors. And I gotta tell you, those robots, they look amazing.
They were badass, genuinely. I really wanted to freaking just have one myself. I want one. I want one bad.
And I'm pretty sure they were using CG to portray the robots. However, they looked really nice. I mean, the way they move, the way they interact with their environments, they reminded me of the special effects used in District 9 when you had the alien prawns. They looked really great and they interacted so perfectly with their environment. And I feel like this was the case here. In fact, how much did this movie cost?
This movie is actually 115 million.
115?
Yeah, that's what its budget was. So we'll find out later in the week to see what it closed out in the box office. But that's what it made. That's what it was worth.
You know what? It's kind of surprising how you have Elysium, a movie that's $115 million, and it looks so much better than The Lone Ranger, which cost like almost $250 million.
Man, that's actually almost unbelievable. I mean, because the attention to detail, it is pretty damn good in this movie. Mm-hmm. Again, one good thing they decided to do with the robots and a lot of the mechanics too is the world of Earth itself is a really big place, and most of these robots, the color scheme, the design on them is very bright, it's very shown, so they stand out a lot compared to Earth. And the same thing can be said for Elysium. When you look at Earth and you look at Elysium, it's just the color changes. It's completely different. Mm-hmm. And again, this goes for the robots, the aircraft. A lot of the Elysium tech really stands out on Earth to show just how much of a difference it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when you see any scenes that take place on Earth, there's like this. It's all tinted very yellow and rusted brown. So let's get into the story. Now, what were your thoughts on the characters and the plot?
The character from Matt Damon, Max DaCosta, I liked him as a character. He was a pretty overall good character. I didn't care too much for the relationship that was involved with Frey, played by Alice Braga. The reason there was they jumped from children to adults, and we're really not sure what happened to them, other than the fact that Frey left sometime in his childhood to become something more. And they reunite in this movie. It's just like a time flash, and they reunite again. And the movie tries to build a relationship out of that. Now, I will say the movie does know how to grab your emotions with little kids. I mean, you see little kids in the very beginning climbing aboard a shuttle that's almost gets exploded. Mm-hmm. Now they do that again. Your emotions are being pulled because throughout the third part of the movie, there's a very big plot point of trying to save Frey's daughter. Mm-hmm. So again, whenever there's children involved in movies, it's usually in an effect to pull your strings, and they want you to feel that emotion, feel that dire need to save a child, because it's a lot different saving a full-grown adult than a child itself. That not only that, but it being a little girl, and the connection the little girl makes with Max DaCosta's character, while it may not be strong, it still pulls at your heartstrings.
I wasn't really emotionally invested in Max's relationship with both his childhood friend and her daughter, because it was kind of a trope that I've seen many times in many different, like you said, it's been used a lot of times, and that trope can be used very well in certain movies. However, in here it felt like I felt like I was like the movie was attempting to manipulate me. Now there are when it comes to movies that do that well, I tend to not notice the fact that I was being manipulated because I'm so drawn in with the story. But when it comes to this movie in particular, I felt like I was being manipulated and thus did not feel invested because again, I felt like they were trying to pull my string. I felt the hands that were pulling my strings.
Yeah, I felt that too, which is why like I was bringing it up. Yeah, you can definitely feel it. It's almost in a sense pandering to the audience. Here here's this little kid. Look at me, look at me. We're trying to save her. Because you've been seeing that a lot in media and video games, especially. You have the Walking Dead game, The Last of Us, where it's all in an attempt to save a girl. And I think a lot of media, I don't know if it's just now or if it's been a long lasting thing, but recently at least they're trying to go through that. Help one person survive, although it's not the main focus of the movie.
Yeah. But for the character of Max himself, I enjoyed seeing Matt Damon's his portrayal of this character. He is obviously the reluctant hero. He at first wants to go to Elysium in order to save his life because, like I said, due to he was involved in a radiation accident, and so he only has 5 days to live. So while at first he only does this out of a need for self-preservation, he ends up doing what he needs in order to help everyone else. So I like what was done there. But as for everyone else, the rest of the cast seemed pretty forgettable and bland. Especially, of course, you had like the token best friend who dies even before around the halfway mark.
Like, you see him and you see how close they are. He's gonna die. It's like you've rang death's doorbell. He's gonna die.
And when you see the girl, the first time you see her, she's in a hospital bed.
So it's like, of course, you like the movie, like it easily like sets up in your mind to let you know what's gonna happen, what's going on. So in that sense, it's almost a little bit kind of predictable.
Right. That's what one of my major complaints about this movie is that it's a rather predictable movie.
Playing it safe.
Right, and there are a lot of plot points that you can see coming from a mile away. When it came to the antagonists of the movie, what were your thoughts?
I just like the supporting cast. I really didn't like the majority of them. I felt like the majority were very forgettable. The only one that stood out at least a tad bit was the Agent Kruger, his name. He was the only one that really stood out because of his actions and how he talked. What he did. I feel like he had a lot more screen time than any of the other antagonists. So when it came to Jodie Foster's character, the Secretary of Defense, I hated her. I just
hated her in a good way, hated her in a bad way.
I couldn't get into her character. I just felt like we are the elites and we cannot let these empowered people join us. I am number one. I will not listen to authority. And then the people who are above her don't really. She gets a little slap on the wrist for disobeying someone. For going to the extreme in eliminating the illegal aliens. Yeah, she gets a little slap on the wrist for that, and it sounds like she's gonna get severely punished. But later on. And more events happen, and nothing's done to her. That's the ridiculous part. There's someone else above her that's in charge, and you only see him three or two times in the entire movie, which really that part really threw me off for the character. He's the president in this case.
Yet he really has no power when it comes to an emergency.
Exactly, because he's supposed to be alerted not only when things happen on Elysium, but on Earth. You see everyone on Elysium, pretty much that's in power, knows what's going on. They get to see that something happened. So I'm pretty dumbfounded that the president didn't take any more action after more situations happened.
Right. For me, I'll agree. I agree with you. Charlton Copley as Agent Kruger, it was real. I thought he did an excellent job at playing the villain. It looked like he had a lot of fun portraying him, and I really liked this actor. He was the main protagonist in District 9. He was one of the four guys in the A Team. So this is the third time I've seen him, and I've been really liking this actor so far. I liked how unabashedly psychotic and brutal he was.
Which makes you wonder why they even hired him in the first place, or why she's so insistent on working with him.
Well, the reason why it's another trope that's been used in a lot of movies where the higher up has to rely on this wild card because the person in the higher position knows that this wild unpredictable guy is the right man for the job. And while it was a trope that has been used many times before, here I thought it was used to good effect. Although it goes to a point where you really have to ask yourself, really, you couldn't see that coming?
Well, there was a point in the movie where I thought, that part was done, and I was totally thrown off. I didn't expect to see that, which kind of pissed me off at one point. I'm like, really? That happened? But, I mean, the movie wills it.
And as you said before, Jodie Foster, she was a character that didn't really make much sense. Like you said, she gets reprimanded but is never really punished for her actions. She's very the stereotypical, only the strong must survive. Although I think the movie was trying to make a message, again, on immigration, where for the last several decades, the American government has been militarizing the Mexican American border, trying to use very violent means of preventing illegal aliens from crossing over. And I believe that that's what the director Neil Blomkamp was trying to convey in this movie, which is rather intriguing. And I think this would have been pulled off better had we had more compelling characters. And especially a villain that isn't one note. Now, you said that you had an issue with a certain side character.
Yeah, William Fichtner plays a character called John Carlyle, and I really like seeing him. I've seen William Fichtner was in Lone Ranger. He was in The Dark Knight. He's been in a lot of roles, and while he doesn't always play a major role, he's always fun to see. But what they give him to work with, it was such a letdown. He barely talks in the whole movie other than talking about his plans or the evil plans that they're gonna do. And even then, he gets killed off so early on. He's just a character that wasted potential.
Right, and I wasn't really bothered by that so much, only because I'm not as big of a fan of that actor as you are. Kind of like the same thing with me and Charlton Copley, because this is the first movie you've seen him in.
Right.
And yeah, he is he's like the stereotypical boss is like, oh, if you're not going to, these workers are simply ants. If one dies, I can simply replace them.
Hey, don't breathe on me, okay? Don't breathe on me.
Well, yeah, okay, I'll give you that. That line was pretty funny in the movie. Now, that also reminded me, you mentioned about the plan. In this movie, the higher-ups at Elysium, they invented this technology where you can install some computer in your brain so that you can basically become a human USB hard drive. I'm not sure. What do you thought about that idea?
I don't know. I really don't know what the heck was going on with that. It's a creative concept. It's like, but I don't know.
Like basically, William Fichtner's character, he gets a lot of important key information. He gets like a lot of key information, installs it in his brain, and so Max's character comes in and steals that information, gets it installed in his brain, and that's what everyone's going after. Really, did USB drives really become obsolete in this future?
I mean, I guess they're trying to protect it, but I mean, if it's going inside your head, I mean, it's just a weird concept. And sure, you can take it out by connecting something to your head, or you can connect two heads to one to transfer information. But just the idea of that is a little silly.
When people download movies and they want to share movies, they have to connect each other's heads or something?
I don't know.
Or if they have a movie installed, can they run out of space in their head when they download too many movies or comics or whatever, or too many files? Or if they have to watch TV, they have to connect their head to the TV in order to watch movies.
It really makes you wonder.
Which I guess I can see the idea of putting something in your head because then that makes you more valuable to whoever's trying to get that information. So then they'd be less willing to kill you. But then if everyone has that USB technology, then what's the point?
Now, see, I did wonder why I get the fact that it's in the brain, but I always wondered why the necessity to keep it's a great security measure, the fact that you can't kill someone in order to get that information, but it's, I don't know, if for some reason just a little tidbit of that kind of annoyed me. The fact remains that that you can't take the information out of the brain or out of the head if the person's dead. And I get it, brain dead. Okay, the information's gone, but it's just a little thing that I don't know, just annoyed me.
One last thing I wanted to cover, this was something I mentioned to you on our way out of the theater, was the Christian allegories in this movie. Because I noticed there was some there were several things that reminded me of that. The one thing was, like, obviously you have Max. He was raised I'm not sure as a Christian or as a Catholic. Which religion has nuns?
It would be he was raised in a Catholic orphanarium. That's what it looks like. You don't really get an exact idea what's going on, what happened to his family, but it seems like he's being raised in a Catholic orphanarium.
Also, again, and then I feel like the movie was trying to portray him as sort of like a Christ figure in a way, because in a way he's trying to help everyone get into Elysium. I feel like Jesus is trying to open the gates of heaven for everyone else. Another thing was, like, I guess in the movie he's bonded to this exoskeleton that gives him super strength. I feel like maybe the exoskeleton is trying to represent the cross that Jesus is nailed to. And there was one point where he gets stabbed in the hand, so I'm figuring, is that supposed to be another callback to Jesus Christ?
I can see what you mean when it comes to, like, opening up the doors of Elysium, for everyone else. But as for the other religious parts, I can't really see it too much as a comparison to I mean, in this case, like, Jesus. Personally, for me, I don't feel like they detract or add to the movie. Like I said, I don't really see it too much. I get the fact that he gets stabbed in the hand, but I believe there's other characters that as well do get stabbed in their hands. As for the suit, I can't really see it as a
cross.
As a cross. I mean, if anything, you could see it as a resurrection, because of him, because by the time before he got the suit on, he was falling down. He could barely walk, and with the suit that helped him. But again, I don't really see that as a Christian allegory. I see it as just a mechanic of the movie, to keep the character going in that sense.
I see. And I forgot to mention, one thing that really bothered me in this movie was the fact that you get to see the city of LA, and the majority of the people in LA are Latinos, yet the one guy who has to lead them all is a white guy. Now, I'm not racist or anything, but it's just that I'm kind of bothered by the fact. Again, this is another thing I've seen in many movies where the one guy who has to save a lot of people of different ethnicities happens to be a white guy. I mean, I can understand that a lot of the higher ups are, upper class white citizens. I mean, I can sort of see that.
Not the president.
Oh, right. But hey, the president is African American,
and he doesn't gonna do anything apparently. So.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right.
But the fact that, of the one person leading all these different ethnicities, or in this case just mostly Latinos and African Americans, is white, I don't know, kind of bothered me, especially when you barely see any other white people on Earth.
I was going to raise the argument that, he was an orphan, so he could have just been raised there, but you're right. I mean, why couldn't it have been any other person raised in that area that coincidentally this thing happened to him? I get he was an orphan and he was brought in there, so but there's so many other people they could have chosen, or like this particular situation could have happened to. Any other worker in that where he worked, this could have happened to them.
Although I feel like this is a Hollywood sort of thing, where maybe they weren't maybe Hollywood isn't confident enough to have a movie that features a protagonist who isn't white, per se.
I don't know about that. As of right now, my mind's drawing a blank as for like protagonists that are not white, but
Or African American.
that's true. I'm 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 not too sure on that one. Like, I can't disagree or agree with you on that one. I have to I have to do some research on my own first, but you do provide a good argument though. How is it just by by mere coincidence, by mere somehow that out of all the people that have to in this movie and many other movies, they just happen to be white, surrounded by no other white people in the area.
We need more Latinos in starring roles. But that's another that's a discussion for another day. I know I keep saying this, but I just remembered another thing that I wanted to bring up was the action sequences. And now I felt like they were handled well for the most part, except for the direct hand-to-hand combat. Because I've said this time and time again in our reviews. I hate it when you have two people fighting and all of a sudden you get these quick cuts every half a second, making me feel disoriented and not being able to follow what is going on.
Right, how nicer would it be for in a fight, to just be able to see them actually fight without it being choppy like this, chop, chop, chop. I get what you mean. Like, why not just one solid fight where you actually get to see the whole fight progress?
Mm-hmm. So far, the only movie I've seen this year that doesn't feature had a fight that was not shot like that was Pacific Rim. But even then, there was another fight in that movie where it was had very choppy editing. So that I guess that's. But everything that involved like the spaceships or the gunplay, the robots, I thought that was handled pretty well.
Right, I think that's going back to that use of
editing.
I think it's a very common thing, and that's what most people are using nowadays. It's a very common common thing. Maybe
that it's I get what I think I understand what you're saying. Like it's kind of a way to make the scene feel more chaotic and dramatic, I suppose.
Right, and it just seems like most people have most directors or. That'd be the right word?
Cinematographers.
Most cinematographers have adapted this. It's the norm now because you see it in almost any kind of fighting action movie.
Yeah.
So this unfortunately as of right now is the norm.
And that's pretty much what has turned me off from the action genre in general. So now we are finally at our final thoughts segment. Pete.
The movie was good. I know we say I swear this is like we could just record everything we say from the last review and use it again on most of our reviews because they end up being mostly the same. For me, the movie was a pretty good ride. I enjoyed the movie. I wouldn't watch it again, and I probably wouldn't go out of my way to buy it. If it came out on TV, I might stick around for a little bit, but it's just not a movie I'm gonna rewatch again and completely enjoy. The story was good. It had some different things, different elements that sometimes you don't always see, but overall not too memorable. As a rating, I'd give it. As a rating, I'd give it a 2.75.
Oh, so you're going by .25s now?
Yes, I am, because I'm really torn between 2.5 and 3. Because I'm really torn by it because I somewhat enjoyed the movie and I don't feel like it deserves a 2.5, but at the same time I don't feel like it deserves a 3. I'm really stuck in between, so I'm gonna give it a 2.75. That's it. I'm done.
You see, this is why I go the simple route and just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The realm between 2 and 3 is just too different for me. Like I have to have a middle ground. I don't know.
And then you need a middle ground for the middle ground.
I know. Yeah, I need because this is the first time I've ever done a 0.75. Anyways.
I pretty much agree with you on all points. It's a decent movie overall. The characters are rather forgettable, but the main protagonist and the main antagonist were fun to watch. The special effects were in the movie's highest point by far. Unfortunately, the story and characters were not as strong. This is out of the two. This is. District 9 was definitely Neil Blomkamp's more superior film, But if you enjoy that movie, I suppose you can enjoy this movie as well, where it's got a lot of sci-fi, got a lot of action, got a lot of human drama. So I guess yeah, I would definitely recommend you guys check it out, at least once. So 3 out of 5 for me. So that's our review for Elysium. Hope you've enjoyed it. And until next time, everybody, take care.
See you at the movies.